Okay, so we've got this really interesting collection of stuff you've sent us. It's all about, living longer, happier, and just healthier lives. And we've got like everything here. We've got practical tips.
Yeah, it's amazing the range of sources you've pulled together.
It really is. Like we've got stuff about how to move your body, what you should be eating, and then it gets into some really like fascinating ideas about emotional well-being.
And even a few things that challenge some of those ideas we might have about health that maybe aren't quite right.
Exactly. So our mission here is to kind of go through all of it and, try to make sense of it for you. So what are those key takeaways? The things you can actually use in your life without getting overwhelmed by a mountain of information.
Right. And it seems like a good place to start is with what just keeps coming up over and over again in your sources.
Yeah, let's do that.
That foundational trio.
Yeah,
Exercise, getting enough rest, and then, of course, what you're putting into your body.
so true. When it comes to exercise, these sources aren't saying you need to go run a marathon tomorrow.
No, not at all.
It's all about starting small and being consistent, like even just little movements. Arm lifts, leg lifts. Maybe you're sitting down watching TV, just get those limbs moving a little bit.
Hmm.
Or some stretching.
Yeah, simple things to get the body moving.
Right. Or, hey, if you have stairs at home, use them. Even walking up and down those slowly a few times a day can make a difference. It's about finding ways to be active throughout your day.
And what's really interesting is this emphasis on not doing too much too soon.
Right.
Your sources really stress the importance of gradually increasing your activity level, giving your body time to adjust.
Makes sense. Avoid those injuries, right?
Exactly. It's about making exercise something you can stick with, not just a burst of effort that fizzles out after a week.
And then sleep. It's not just about not feeling tired, right?
Not at all. It affects so much.
Your sources highlight how crucial sleep is for everything our bodies do. Managing stress and anxiety, thinking clearly, it's all connected to getting enough sleep. And figuring out how much sleep you personally need is really important. It's not the same for everyone.
And one thing that came up was the idea of a short nap.
A naps during the day.
Yeah, like a 20-minute power nap. Your sources suggest it can really help you feel better later in the day. But of course, it depends on the person, right?
Absolutely. So, okay, let's talk about what we're putting into our bodies, what we're drinking. And water, plain old water, keeps coming up as like essentials.
The fundamental.
Like it's your body's cleaning system, right? It flushes out all the stuff that shouldn't be there. And here's a super practical tip. The next time you're thirsty, reach for water instead of that sugary drink.
It's such a simple swap.
You'll save money, and you're avoiding all that extra sugar and all those artificial ingredients. Win-win.
Exactly. So if we look at these three things together, exercise, rest, hydration, it's like a foundation for preventing problems down the line, supporting your body's natural ability to function at its best.
I like that. And beyond those foundational things, your sources also talk about other ways we can take care of ourselves, like just basic physical safety, like
Yes.
wearing a helmet when you're riding a bike, no matter how old you are.
Such a simple thing.
It is, but it's about protecting your head and most importantly, your brain. It's like, why wouldn't you? Right?
And that actually leads to a bigger point about, well, preventing harm, right? Being proactive about our health.
Yeah, I see that connection. It's not just waiting for something to go wrong and then trying to fix it. It's about taking steps to avoid those problems in the first place.
Exactly.
Okay, so then there's this undeniable link between stress and feelings like depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Your sources really emphasize that we shouldn't just try to ignore these things. We need to actively work on reducing them.
And they even talk about tapping into our own, what they call natural resources for happiness.
Natural resources.
It's an interesting concept. Like, we have this inherent capacity for well-being that we can kind of cultivate and strengthen. And of course, making choices to avoid those harmful substances and habits plays a huge role.
Right. So taking care of ourselves in a more holistic way. It's not just the physical stuff, and then it gets even wider.
Wider.
Yeah. Like spiritual food, things like prayer, or finding a sense of purpose alongside, mental food, like learning and engaging your mind. And of course, the physical food that we actually eat.
So it's this idea of being nourished in different ways
Right.
and recognizing that they're all interconnected.
Exactly. Okay, this next part is really interesting because it's about the psychology of how we deal with our health.
How we approach those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And how we sometimes avoid them. Like your sources talk about how we tend to deflect serious health information with jokes or, just kind of brush it off.
Which, in the moment, might seem harmless, but it can actually prevent us from facing reality.
Right. It's like we're delaying dealing with something important.
Exactly. And when those health challenges do arise, we might not be prepared to handle them.
And then there's this idea of selective listening. You know, when you only hear what you want to hear and filter out the advice you don't want to deal with.
I think we've all done that at some point.
Oh, for sure. But, it can be dangerous because we might be missing crucial information. And, it specifically mentions how important it is to listen to the concerns of our friends and family.
Especially about those habits that can be really harmful, like drinking too much.
Yeah. And it makes this point that those actions don't just affect us, they affect the people who care about us too. Okay, now here's where it gets really fascinating.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Your sources make this connection between how we communicate and our overall happiness and health, which is something I'd never really considered before.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like how negative reactions in our interactions can actually have a negative impact on our lifespan and our health in general.
It's like our emotional well-being is tied to our physical well-being in this really direct way.
It is, and it gets very practical. It talks about active listening and using paraphrasing when we're talking to someone, like just taking a moment to summarize what they've said to make sure you understand.
That sounds so simple, but it can make a huge difference.
It can. It can really clear up misunderstandings, reduce arguments, and make both people feel heard. And there's this little example about Sarah and Joe trying to decide on a new dress.
Ah, the classic clothing dilemma.
Right, but it shows how just restating what you've heard can help clarify intentions and prevent a fight. And it emphasizes that communication isn't just about talking, it's about really listening to what the other person is saying.
Absolutely.
And your sources point out that paraphrasing can also help reduce those angry emotions and even improve your memory of the conversation.
So many benefits. But I imagine there are some caveats.
Oh, absolutely. Like your intentions have to be genuine. You have to be coming from a place of understanding, not trying to blame or manipulate the other person.
Right. Because even the best communication techniques can be used in negative ways.
Exactly. And negative energy itself is highlighted as a huge problem. Like it can lead to all sorts of health issues and breakdowns in our relationships.
Unhappiness, discouragement, anger. It's like a downward spiral.
And a pessimistic outlook. It's almost like a denial of the good things in life. And then your sources get into some common communication pitfalls.
Like what kinds of things?
Oh, like interrupting, not really listening to the whole story. There's a John and Sherry example about that. Or trying to just placate someone without really addressing the issue, being judgmental. There's a story about a local girl and that.
Yes. Judging others. We've all been there.
Right. Or thinking we know what someone else is thinking, like that Jerry and Lisa example about the hair.
It can be so easy to fall into these traps. But recognizing them is the first step, right?
It is. So it seems like how we interact with others, how well we listen, and how effectively we express ourselves has a direct impact on both our physical and emotional health. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about managing stress. Your sources offer some practical techniques.
Okay. Like what?
Well, one of the first things is the importance of good posture.
Posture. That's interesting.
It is, right. But it makes sense. Our physical alignment affects how our bodies feel. And if you can sit comfortably for long periods, that can definitely reduce stress. And then there's breathing.
Breathing. We do that all the time.
We do, but your sources suggest that conscious, proper breathing is really crucial for our well-being, not just when we're exercising or meditating. And then it gets into a specific meditation practice.
Oh, which one?
The lotus position. It's a traditional Buddhist posture. And it describes, like in detail, how to position your legs, how to hold your hands, the importance of relaxing your stomach, even how to align your spine.
Wow, very specific.
It is. And they talk about the benefits, how it can help boost your awareness and promote deep relaxation, which, can have all these positive effects on your health, lifespan, and happiness.
Makes sense. Relaxation is definitely good for us.
Right. Okay, let's get into the world of supplements and natural remedies that came up in your materials. Flaxseed oil is mentioned. It might help lower blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides.
That's interesting. But isn't flaxseed oil pretty high in calories?
It is. Your sources actually point that out. You need to factor that into your diet. They suggest a dosage based on your weight.
Ah, good point.
Then there's ginkgo biloba, which has been used in Germany for a long time for all kinds of ailments.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It might boost mental clarity, brain function, and memory. And they give dosage recommendations, usually 120 to 240 milligrams a day, split into a couple of doses. But they also mention that ginkgo might not be right for everyone, certain situations where it's not advisable.
So it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement.
Absolutely. Next up, DHEA and pregnenolone are mentioned as supplements that might help boost the immune system, fight off disease, and improve mental sharpness. Again, there's a caution to check with your healthcare provider first.
These things can interact with other medications, so that's good advice.
Then there's this thing called metabolite. It's a thermogenic formula. Some people use it for energy and weight loss. And then specifically for women's health, they talk about HRT,
HRT.
hormone replacement therapy,
Hmm.
and vitamin D and calcium. All of this in the context of bone health and reducing the risk of heart disease. But again, it's important to talk to your doctor about these things,
Yeah.
especially HRT.
Right. HRT can have some side effects, so it's not a decision to take lightly.
Definitely not. And then, of course, there's the power of phytochemicals and antioxidants. Those are found in fruits and vegetables, and they can help prevent disease. And then we have melatonin, which can promote sleep and help relax the nerves.
I've heard that melatonin can also help with jet lag.
Yeah, I think so. And they say it might even slow down aging and help fight conditions like cancer and cardiovascular disease. They recommend starting with a low dose, like 1 milligram at night. And it's interesting, our bodies naturally produce less melatonin as we age, and stress can also affect its levels.
Wow, so many things to consider.
There are. And then finally, pycnogenol and phosphatidylserine are mentioned. Pycnogenol is an antioxidant, and phosphatidylserine might support brain function. So your sources offer all these potential tools, but always with that caution to be informed and to check with your doctor.
It's like a toolbox, but you need to know how to use the tools properly.
Exactly. Okay, let's get back to the importance of movement. Physical activity goes beyond those basic exercises we talked about earlier. Aerobic exercise is really highlighted for its ability to increase our oxygen intake.
Well, that makes sense. More oxygen is good for our cells.
It is. It can improve our overall health, and it can even help slow down aging. And they give some great examples like swimming, brisk walking, hiking, cycling.
I love all those activities.
Me too.
Hmm.
And it's not just the physical benefits. Aerobic exercise releases endorphins, which can reduce pain and make us feel good. And it can help reduce stress, improve sleep, even potentially reduce cellulite and boost self-esteem and sex drive.
Wow, that's quite a list.
It is. But on the flip side, your sources highlight the risks of being sedentary, and they offer practical suggestions for getting more movement into our daily routines.
Like what?
Oh, like turning off the TV more often, walking short distances instead of driving, taking the stairs, even getting a pet that needs walks.
Simple things, but they can really make a difference.
Right. And then there's stretching. Simple stretching and warm-up exercises can improve our flexibility, keep our joints healthy, and help prevent things like arthritis.
So important, especially as we age.
It is. And when it comes to strength training, they emphasize starting with good form and gradually increasing the intensity. They even mention examples of people in their 90s who are strength training.
That's incredible.
It is. It really shows that it's never too late to start. For those who are new to exercise, they suggest starting with a realistic plan and using affordable equipment like dumbbells and foam mats.
Those are good starting points.
And then they get into specific exercises: squats, lunges, overhead presses, dumbbell bench presses, push-ups, crunches. They explain which muscle groups each exercise targets and how they benefit our health and longevity. It's like a mini fitness guide.
Very helpful.
Now, let's go back to that mind-body connection. Your sources talk about how negative energy and pessimistic thinking can actually contribute to health problems. And they use this rather amusing but kind of disturbing anecdote about a Teenage Mutant Ninja Child.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Child. Okay, that's a new one.
It is. But it really illustrates how our negative emotions can impact our physical well-being. And of course, the opposite is also true. Humor and a positive attitude are important for our health. And they talk about how our metabolism slows down as we age and the role of muscles in burning calories. They suggest using BMI as a general guideline, noting that a BMI over 25 for adults over 25 might indicate increased health risks.
BMI, that's body mass index. Right.
Yeah. And they even give a quick example of how to calculate it. And then they talk about abdominal fat and the role of stress management in maintaining a healthy weight. They mention genetics, too, which is something we can't control. And they give some healthy eating tips. Focus on low-fat, balanced, high-fiber diets rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Stay away from fast food. It's really about finding a sustainable approach to eating. And, of course, exercise is crucial for both losing weight and keeping it off.
It all comes back to those core principles, doesn't it?
It does. Balanced eating, regular exercise, managing stress. Those are the keys.
Okay, so what else do they say about nutrition?
Well, they reiterate that generally a lower fat diet is beneficial. And then there are these facts revealed about beef.
Facts revealed.
Yeah, like it's naturally low in sodium, a good source of iron and essential amino acids. But of course, moderation is key. And watch those cholesterol levels. They also recommend grilled chicken as a low-fat option and being mindful of the amount of butter and vegetable oils we use in cooking.
Oh, that's a good point. Some vegetable oils can be high in saturated fat.
They can. And boiling meats is suggested as a way to reduce some of the less healthy components. And then, of course, there's the big no-nos: smoking, excessive drinking, illegal drugs.
Those are the big ones?
They are. They harm our organs and our overall health. And they even caution against misusing over-the-counter and prescription medications. It all comes back to giving our bodies what they need and avoiding things that can hurt us. And that includes getting enough sleep and creating a restful environment in our bedrooms.
It's all connected.
It is. Okay, so let's talk about some specific health concerns. They talk about diabetes, which is a serious condition with different forms. There's diabetes insipidus, and then the more common diabetes mellitus.
Diabetes. It's so prevalent these days.
It is. And they mention different types of diabetes mellitus: type I, type 2, gestational diabetes, secondary diabetes, and MODY. They also briefly discuss the potential causes and management strategies for diabetes insipidus. And they highlight the importance of a high-fiber diet for managing complications from diabetes. Even the use of juicers is suggested as a way to help manage cravings.
Juicers.
It is. And then they talk about the importance of reducing our risk of disease in general. It's crucial for both longevity and happiness. They focus on heart disease and stroke, which are leading causes of death. And they note that women actually have a higher risk of dying from heart disease.
That's scary.
It is. So for a healthy heart, they recommend quitting smoking, regular cardiovascular exercise, and a balanced diet rich in fruits and vegetables. HRT and vitamin E are also mentioned.
So those are the classics. But they're classics for a reason.
Exactly. They work. And then there's a mention that walnuts, peanuts, and almonds can be good for heart health, with a reminder about potential allergies. And this interesting tip that the health of your gums can impact your heart and brain.
Really? Gums in the heart.
That's what they say. And they emphasize getting enough calcium for bone health and exercising regularly, especially strength training, for overall health improvement. They even mention a 2-day fluid-only fast for cleansing impurities.
A fast. That's pretty extreme.
It is. It's not for everyone. And they reiterate that exercise is crucial for fighting osteoporosis and other diseases. So moving into hormones and different life stages, your sources mention that women over 30 might be able to boost their estrogen levels through regular sexual activity, around twice a week. And they also mention the benefits of an active sex life in general.
It's good for our physical and emotional health.
It is. And they talk about nurturing sensuality and intimacy in long-term relationships. They connect intimacy to overall good health and strong relationships, and highlight that women often experience their peak in these areas as they get older.
That's a really positive message.
It is. And then they talk about menopause. It's presented as a natural transition, and they suggest incorporating soy into the diet and maintaining regular sexual activity to potentially boost estrogen levels. They also mention potential mood changes and the importance of accepting those changes for better health and happiness. And they talk about change in general. Change is a constant part of life, and resisting it can lead to negative habits and poorer health.
It's like that saying, the only constant is change.
It is. And they offer some tips for adapting to change, like see it as an opportunity for something new and positive. They give examples like seeking financial advice if you're struggling with debt, learning new skills, experimenting with different hairstyles, even being mindful of your media consumption. It's about being flexible and resilient.
That's great advice.
Okay, now we're back to stress, and your sources really hammer home the point that the inability to relax both physically and mentally and excessive worrying are major health problems. They reiterate the importance of exercise, stress reduction techniques, acceptance, a healthy diet, and maybe even supplements. And they make this really sobering statement: a lack of physical activity is a leading cause of death due to high stress levels.
That's something to think about.
It is.
Yeah.
And they talk about the tendency to overwork ourselves, in the pursuit of security and survival. It can lead to a dangerous cycle of stress. So making time for relaxation and hobbies is really important. And they caution against multitasking. It's better to focus on one thing at a time. They also mention the amount of time we spend online and watching television. Those can contribute to our stress
I
levels.
can definitely see that.
And then they go into a lot of detail about the signs of stress. Irritability, being overly sensitive, physical symptoms like nervous twitching, cold fingers, heartburn, headaches, behavioral signs like increased anger, talking too much, withdrawing from others. And as stress builds, they describe more severe mental, emotional, and physical symptoms. It's like a roadmap of how stress can manifest in our lives.
It's really helpful to have that awareness.
It is. And then they offer some really concrete steps for reducing stress. Eating balanced meals regularly, avoiding eating in a rush, getting enough fruits and vegetables, drinking water, maintaining good posture, practicing deep breathing, exercising regularly, setting realistic goals, taking breaks, learning to say no, getting enough sleep, spending time with loved ones, and seeking professional help when needed. It's a really holistic approach to managing stress.
That's a great list.
Okay, back to nutrition. They debunk the myth that all processed foods are safe. They highlight hidden ingredients like nitrates, nitrites, and additives, especially in cured meats. And then they talk about what they call the Schwartzman principles and advise caution when it comes to commercially raised poultry and meats.
Schwartzman principles. I'll have to look those up.
They also list some better options for cheese and point out that smoked fish often contains nitrates. And then they revisit the whole saturated fat versus unsaturated fat debate. They present some newer research suggesting that saturated fats might not be as bad as we thought, especially in healthy individuals, but they contrast this with older studies where participants often had other unhealthy habits.
So it's not as simple as saturated fat is bad and unsaturated fat is good.
It's more nuanced than that. And they recommend getting around 50 to 80 grams of carbohydrates per day, mainly from whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes. They even mention additives in crackers and give recommended serving sizes for different types of crackers and toasts. And they emphasize that fats are essential for our bodies. They play a role in our hormones, our cells, even our brain function. And it's not fat itself that directly causes weight gain, it's the body's insulin response. So finding a dietary balance that works for each individual is key.
That makes sense. We're all different.
We are. And they reiterate the importance of getting those 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. They suggest juicing as a way to increase nutrient intake, but they also caution against overdoing it on fruits and vegetables and emphasize the importance of listening to our body's natural hunger and fullness cues.
So it's not just about eating certain foods, it's about paying attention to our bodies.
It is, and they make this distinction between instinctive eaters and obsessive eaters. They encourage us to tune into our natural signals about when and how much to eat. They even suggest that the diet industry might have a vested interest in perpetuating certain diet myths.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
It is, right. So accepting our body as it is right now is seen as the first step towards healthy eating. And instinctive eating is described as simply eating what you want when you're hungry and stopping when you're satisfied.
It sounds so simple.
It does, but it can be really challenging in our current culture. And they suggest that our natural instincts can actually override misleading dietary advice and help us prevent both overeating and undereating. They even criticize those unrealistic beauty standards that we see in the media. And while doctors and experts can be helpful, they emphasize that each individual ultimately knows their own body best. Acceptance and trusting our instincts, combined with regular exercise, are seen as the true path to a healthy and happy life. And they make this distinction between our optimal weight, which is based on our unique biochemistry and genetics, and our ideal weight, which is often an unrealistic image.
So we should strive for our optimal weight, not some arbitrary ideal.
Exactly. And they acknowledge the damage that media and societal pressures can do to our body image. But the message is clear. Start now with self-acceptance. It's key to a healthier future. And they reiterate that fats are essential for our bodies and that it's really those fluctuations in insulin levels that are more relevant to weight gain than fat intake itself. They also express concern about additives and harmful chemicals in our food supply.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but it's all about empowering ourselves to make informed choices. Okay, now let's talk about families. Your sources acknowledge the challenges that many families face and the prevalence of stress and negative thinking in family dynamics. They point out that there's no magic solution for family happiness. It requires looking at our own habits, behaviors, and overall lifestyle.
Makes sense. We have to start with ourselves.
And they connect negative thinking to various unhelpful patterns in relationships, like constantly rehearsing arguments in our heads, trying to placate others without addressing the real issues, fantasizing about how things could be different, derailing important conversations, assuming we know what others are thinking, and being judgmental. All of these things can contribute to conflict and communication breakdowns, and they introduce this concept of dialect. It refers to the specific way we speak and understand language within a group.
Oh, like slang and jargon.
Exactly. And understanding those nuances can help improve our interactions. And communication breakdowns themselves are a major source of stress and health problems. So, effective communication, which includes really listening, hearing what's being said, observing nonverbal cues, and being attuned to emotions, is so important. And letting go of negative behaviors like being judgmental is essential for truly hearing what others are trying to say. They also link communication issues to unhealthy coping mechanisms like excessive drinking and drug use. Finding deeper meaning in our activities and learning healthy ways to express ourselves are seen as key to reducing stress and finding happiness in our families. So, happiness requires positive thinking, regular exercise, and a keen awareness of ourselves and others.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is, but it's all interconnected. Okay, we're in the home stretch now. The conclusion of our sources is a call to action. They acknowledge that there's been misinformation in the past, but they highlight current efforts to promote better health. They also suggest that sometimes even experts miss the simplest truths.
That happens sometimes.
It does. And they emphasize once again that lack of exercise is a major problem. It can negatively impact our musculoskeletal system. And they highlight the wisdom of our instincts, suggesting that they can guide us towards better health than external advice, though those instincts can become distorted over time.
So we need to learn to listen to our bodies again.
Exactly. And it's never too late to start making changes. They list the various components of our body and vital systems, emphasizing the importance of caring for our muscles and joints, and the musculoskeletal system as a whole. They explain how muscles work, how they support us, allow us to move and protect our organs, and they stress that exercise is crucial for maintaining this system.
It's like a reminder that our bodies are amazing machines that need regular maintenance.
They are. So listening to our instincts combined with exercise and effective communication can lead to a longer, healthier, and happier life. They also mention the importance of spiritual food, from sources like the Bible and meditation, but they caution against blind faith. It's important to be discerning. They go into some detail about the musculoskeletal system, explaining its various components and functions, and they describe the negative consequences of not exercising, like pain, stiffness, numbness, fatigue, and they reiterate the importance of exercise for maintaining muscle strength and joint health. The conclusion is that maintaining a healthy weight on our muscles and reducing stress on our joints are key to a happy, healthy, and long life.
It all ties together.
It does. Okay, so one last thing. They talk about the importance of positive energy.
Positive energy.
Yeah, it comes from optimistic thinking and leads to encouragement and affirmative actions. Positive people are upbeat, they avoid negative thoughts, they feel certain, they're resolute, they're clear, decisive, and make sound decisions.
That sounds like a good way to be.
It does, right. And you can cultivate positive energy by listening to your instincts, surrounding yourself with positive influences, stopping judgment, fighting for your beliefs with evidence, and having strong convictions. On the other hand, they describe negative thinkers as lacking enthusiasm, acting destructively, procrastinating, being lazy, downbeat, depressed, and in denial, and they link negative thoughts to a shorter lifespan.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about our health.
Exactly. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've covered a lot: diet, instinctive and obsessive eating, supplements, exercise, positive and negative thinking, and so much more.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has, and it's really up to you, our listener, to take this information and put it into practice.
Exactly. Verify the facts by practicing each day what you learned.
Keep those appointments with your doctor, never give up on your pursuit of better health, and please carve out time to relax and reduce stress through both physical activity and cultivating a positive outlook.
You are on the road to a healthy and fulfilling life.